This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of July 10th, 2023. The subject for this week is failover solutions. And before I really talk about that, I guess I have to define the term failover. Failover is what happens when something in your system breaks and something else steps up automatically. Actually, it doesn't even have to be automatic, but almost all the time it is. Think of a redundant system, something that just starts working because something else failed. Now, I'm talking about internet systems that need failover in this particular case. I'm not talking about, all sorts of other stuff. I mean, I think that if you fly a plane, you have redundant failover systems too, but that's not really what we sell at Solid Signal, do we? We do, on the other hand, sell failover systems for internet. That's a little harder to say than I thought it would be. Anyway, getting to the meat and potatoes of it. If you have a situation where you depend on internet, you need to have a way for your business to stay around even if that internet goes down. Let's think about that for a second. Your business internet literally hangs by a thread all the time. What do I mean by that? I mean that your entire internet traffic goes through a strand of fiber that's about as thick as an average thread, and that's it. That's all it is. Now, of course, it's got some padding on it and some shielding and some other stuff, and it's probably in a conduit to try to keep it safe. But if you live somewhere where it snows and that fiber line is above ground, and a lot of times it is, snow accumulates on it, it's going to snap. If you live somewhere where it floods, well, those fiber networks, they need a little bit of power here and there, and they can short out. There's plenty of reasons that your internet line can fail, and you don't want to take your business with it. As a matter of fact, a while ago in a previous job, I had a situation where all we were doing was repaving over the parking lot. It wasn't even supposed to be a big deal, but they decided to kind of grade out a little bit the lot, make it nice and smooth. And all that did was they crushed things down just a little bit, just enough to break a fiber line. Now, the worst part of it was we weren't really sure where that break was. They were able to find it. It took about 3 days, but we weren't out of business for 3 days. Why? Because we had a failover solution. The perfect failover solution is something that works when the solution that you have now stops working. So, for example, a bad failover solution would just be another internet line from the same company. Because, it's just going to be another strand of fiber sitting next to the first one, and the first one breaks, the second one's going to break. It's just, that's not going to help you with anything. Now, the perfect failover solution is often cellular. A lot of times we tend to discount the use of cellular for business because it's not really fast enough or robust enough for business, but it is enough to be used in an emergency. And cell systems tend to be the first ones back up and the last ones to go down. Cell towers have big old storage batteries, so if they lose power, get off the grid, they're going to stay up for a longer period of time. And cellular data, depending on where you are, can be pretty fast. It really can. The only issue is that oftentimes you only have a limited amount of it at top speed. 40 to 60 gigabytes is a typical amount that you would get from a cellular tethering solution. But that could be enough to get you through a couple of days. And even if you have overage charges, they're better than just plain shutting down. The thing about cellular for business is it works, but you need extra equipment in order to make it happen. If your home internet goes down, which, luckily is very rare, especially for me, I've been very lucky with reliable internet. If your home internet goes down, then you can tether to your cell phone. It's a very manual process. You can have your cell phone, in most cases, create a secure Wi-Fi network that you can use to work or stream or, really whatever it takes. And that's great. But for business, you need something that's going to click over in a second or less, and it's got to do it automatically. You need a router with a failover solution built in. And that's where Signal Group comes in. That's where you can find it, solidsignal.com, and the experts at Signal Connect will recommend for you the perfect failover solution, usually some sort of cellular router. A cellular router is just like a regular router, except for it's got a little SIM card slot in it. Sometimes it's got an eSIM, which means it looks identical to a regular router. But it is capable of connecting to the cell network, usually in addition to some sort of fiber network. That's kind of a really cool thing. And depending on the unit that you get, you can set it so that you're using the fastest possible connection automatically, or you're always using one connection unless it goes down, in which case you start using the other connection, however you want to configure it. And it really goes, there's solutions that kind of go from the low end to the high end, and it really just depends on what you want, what you need. We've got some solutions at Signal Group that will take in several different sources of internet. So let's say, for example, you wanted to put Starlink up, and you also had fiber, and you also wanted to have a cellular failover solution, and heck, maybe you even still had dial-up in case things got really messy. Well, this kind of solution is going to let you switch from one to the other very quickly, and in many cases automatically, and that's what your business needs. The fancy ones, the really, really cool ones, and I think that if you're a larger business, larger than just a few people, this is the kind of thing that you're going to need, will also let you use some kind of traffic and not others. For example, it won't let you stream video, which means that automatically when you're on that cellular connection, your employees, who might not be working at full productivity anyway, are not going to be able to download YouTubes or watch their own personal Netflix. And that's going to mean more data is usable for your business. Because the funny thing is that most businesses don't use a lot of data for most of the things they do. If you're using cloud-based services like Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, you're using more than you were using, say, in the past when you had everything on a local server. But even so, you're not using a lot because you're working largely with very small documents. And that means that 40 gigabyte limit, for example, for a typical cellular tethering connection, that could last you 3 or 4 days. It's not going to last you 3 or 4 months, but it could last you long enough until you get a better solution. And as I said, most cellular plans, especially the ones that we offer at Signal Connect, give you the opportunity to purchase additional data if you need it. Speaking of needs, and one of these things that I like to talk about all the time, who really needs a failover solution and one that really works all the time are people on boats. And why? Why do people on boats need a failover solution? Because if you're in the harbor, you're probably connecting to the marina Wi-Fi. If you're within about 10 miles of shore, you might want to use a cellular connection because you're going to get it and it's relatively inexpensive. And then if you are going to go further than that, you're probably going to want to use satellite internet. Satellite internet for marine works a little bit different than it does on land. It is not an unlimited solution, and it's almost always got some sort of data cap to it. And the data caps can be a little bit hard to deal with. So you're going to try to make sure you're using your data as smartly as possible. And a failover solution that lets you automatically switch over when you lose one or the other, and then reestablish as soon as you get back into range, that's what you need. That's what's going to do it. One more thing I should mention about cellular failover solutions is that a cell solution needs a cell signal. And considering that this solution may be found, in your server closet or something like that, you may not have great cell service in there. And there's a couple of ways that you can improve that. You can put in an entire business-wide cellular signal booster solution, something that's going to give everybody better cell signal. If you've got a sales organization, this is exactly what I would recommend for you, because your salespeople have to be connected all the time. If you don't care so much about whether or not you get good cell service inside the building, well, that's cool, but you can still run something called a mobile-to-mobile booster, which will boost a single device, in this case the router, by running an antenna outside and providing amplification inside. It's a great solution, not terribly expensive to implement, and it's going to give you that strong cell signal that you need. Of course, you need to realize that anytime you're dealing with any of these solutions, you also need power, which is why you need to have some sort of power protection system, like the ones that we offer at Solid Signal, of course. But If you don't get them from me, get them from somewhere. Get uninterruptible power supplies and get enough so that you're actually able to continue working for more than just a few minutes. When disaster strikes, and unfortunately it looks like it does more often than we would feel really comfortable talking about, you're going to need to be up for a little while, not just 5-10 minutes. Blackouts could last a day or two or a week. Who knows? And you want to stay in business. It's just as simple as that. Anyway, I've been talking about this for about 10 minutes, and I know that people tend to kind of get a little bit less interested after the 10-minute point, so I'll let you all go. I'll just simply say, as I always do, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment wherever you get this podcast. It makes me look good to my boss, and I will see you again next week on the Solid Signal Podcast.